Welcome to hopefully what is our second episode of the Bougie Book Podcast. I recognize that in our very first newbie episode, we did not introduce ourselves, our names,
it's a rookie mistake,
or what it is that we are doing. I am Tara.
I'm Kira.
And we are just two teachers who love books, in particular, mystery, fantasy, crime, even though I read a lot of nonfiction and you do not.
Yeah.
We do have a shared love for all things ethereal and supernatural-ish, I guess, in books.
So naturally, second one had to be A Court of Thorns and Roses, which, first off, spoiler alert, if you haven't read the book, we're going to keep it to this book. There will be spoilers, though. And also, we can't pronounce anything to save our lives. So,
yes, we had to look up a pronunciation, guys, so really don't come at us if we're doing it wrong. Because also, today, in my looking up of the pronunciations, I was really shook with Reesend being Reese and Reesend, because I really preferred Ricend or Rice. Or no, I think I kept, when they shortened it, I kept calling him Riz. Riz, or I don't know. So I'm gonna probably be going back and forth, and I'm gonna try to land on Reese, but again, I'm sorry.
That one I got because I saw a video of a guy that was just like baffled when he figured it out. He like went to his wife and was like, but anywho. Yeah. Also, I, as in Kira, have read the whole series, obviously minus the looming sixth book, and I reread, so it's a little fresh, but I'm gonna try my best. I wrote down the cutoff so I don't bring in people that are not associated with it.
And I've only read the first two books in completion and was on the third book when I decided to reread the first book to have this fresh in my head.
Yes.
So that's where we are, and hopefully no spoilers after the first book, but lots of spoilers for the first book.
Yes.
That's just how we do.
Woo, there's a lot. Starting off, I wrote brief summary, but it's not brief whatsoever. Let's be honest. So we've got...
It's 2 pages.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, no, 1, 2.
Yeah, it's like 2.5.
Yeah.
We've got Prithian, which is this land mass. And I don't want to call it a continent because they refer to somewhere else as a continent. So it's like a land mass that has humans living on it and fae. And you have the humans who have a tiny sliver of the southern part of this landmass, and then the other portion, the much larger portion, is the Fae lands. They have 7 courts that's broken up, and they're divided by this wall. This wall was created after this great and horrible war. They made this treaty between the Fae and the humans, and they built this wall. But the humans, they obviously don't live as long as the Fae, and so their history kind of has been blurred as to really who the Fae are, I believe. And so they have this horrible, terrible fear of the Fae. Like, they think these fairies are just murderous, terrible. There's like one group of people, children of the blessed. Or I think that's how they call it.
Yeah, but they're considered like very strange and off their rocker type people.
Yes.
But I think also what contributes to the ideas about the Fae being so awful and horrible is how many years, I mean, where we're set in the book now, the war was like what, 500 years ago,
I think.
So of course, at this point in time, stories have gone through many generations. Yeah.
The Fae are immortal, so they know the truth. They know who was on what side of the war, because we learn not all Fae fought against the humans. Some fought with them. But that's where we meet our female main character, Feyre, who is a human. She lives on the human lands, obviously. They used to be wealthy. Her mother died when she was younger. They lost everything. So it's Dad, who, interestingly enough, I don't think we ever learn his name.
No.
At all. So her dad, her sister Nesta, and then her other sister, Elaine. And when they lose their money, honestly, no one steps up except Feyre.
And she's the baby, right?
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Wild.
She's the baby. And I remember on my second read, I had to highlight it because it says that she was only 19. And I think you forget how old she is, or how young she is, rather, as you read the book, because of all the things that she's doing, all of the responsibilities that she holds on her shoulders.
Yeah. So when they lose their money, she realizes she has to figure out how to not only produce extra money, but food. Hence, she learns how to hunt. So we meet her in the wintertime, I want to say.
Yeah.
She's out on a hunt and she comes across a wolf. Very large wolf. She has this moment where she's like, I don't know if that's a wolf or not. Could
well,
be.
First she's got her eye on a deer.
Yeah.
She's thinking, this will feed my family for a week. We can sell the pelt. Like, she's just really kind of honing in on how important this deer is. But then the wolf comes along and she's like, you're not taking my deer.
Exactly. Yeah. And then and I believe she does have that moment where she processes, like, this could be a fae.
Yes, because he's so huge.
Yes. And she still kills him. So she's all excited. They've got all this meat. She sells the pelt. And then they're in their little cabin. And this, I don't even know how to describe him. I wrote beast, I think. This beast just crashes in. They describe him in the most peculiar way.
They do. And I'm not going to lie. And you're going to laugh at me because this isn't very, scary. But because they kept calling him Beast.
I know where you're going.
You know what I'm going to say. I just kept picturing the cartoon version of Beast from Beauty and the Beast. But he was very scary in the beginning of that movie.
But you got to add horns. I think he had horns this one. Yes. There's some antlers or something.
I think the Beast in the Beauty and the Beast had horns too.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So that's what I was picturing. Probably not what she wanted, but that's where my brain went.
Then this beast, I don't know what else to call it now, basically says, like, you killed a fae, and according to the treaty, you either have to come live in Prythian or you die. Yeah. And so she makes the decision to go. So they make this trek and they get to the spring court, because it's spring, summer, autumn, winter, dawn, day, and night. So they go to the spring court, and she finally sees this beast in his human form, and that's when we meet Tamlin. And it's kind of interesting because it takes her a second to put two and two together on, like, Tamlin's importance. Like, she's like, oh, he must be, like, important. And then it's like a while before she's like, oh,
how important he is. Yeah.
So she gets there and all she can think about is getting back home. How can she get out of this? There's got to be a loophole, all this stuff. She meets Tamlin's friend, Lucian.
I think it's Lucian.
Yeah, I think it is too. Lucian. And then, and I can't remember exactly, she figures out Tamlin is the High Lord of the Spring Court, essentially. And Lucian is a descendant. His dad is the High Lord of the Autumn Court. So then she has this oh my gosh, this guy is obviously super important. She's living in this huge, they call it the manor, I think, not a palace, called a manor. And she really starts just focusing on getting home. But then,
which is interesting because in the beginning of the book, you learn how awful her life is at home. And it's not just because everything is on her shoulders, but it's also because the older sister, Nesta, seems to be really mean and nasty to her, right? But I think it's more she hates the father and just hates their situation, but also she doesn't seem appreciative of what Feyre does. And then Elaine, she's sweet, but she also does nothing.
Yes.
But the father, he does nothing. No. He contributes nothing. He doesn't even try to contribute. He just lets his youngest daughter risk her life to save them. And so there are moments in the book where you find yourself like, yes, if you were taken from your home by a beast, you'd be wanting to go home. But also, why does she want to go back there so bad? But she does make a point that her mom made her promise to her before the mom died that she would take care, which is really interesting because it's like, what did the mom already sense in her? And so I started having like these weird ideas that the mom, and you've read the whole series, but I wonder if the mom ever comes back. You don't have to tell me, come back in terms of like bringing her up that maybe she knew something about her daughter?
There are a lot of theories about the mom.
Okay, because I just feel like maybe she had a vision, or she knew that her daughter was going to be something, and that's why she made her promise.
I won't say it now. When we get to the theories, I'll tell you some theories about the mom.
Okay.
But so yeah, we're in the spring court. She's kind of like, she's doing some things. She's going out and about with Lucian and horseback riding and walking through the ground. You know, the typical, oh, what do the, you know, royal do back in like the 1800s? They walk the gardens. Like, that's the vibe I was getting.
I kept, while I was reading it, I was like, what a life.
I know. And so then we kind of learn more about everyone, but we learn more about Lucian, why he's in the spring court, being the son of the High Lord, the Autumn Court, which is, his family kind of sucks, and they're really nasty, and poor Lucian was in love once, and they killed her because she wasn't good enough. So that's why he's there with his BFF Tamlin now. And so life keeps going on, and Feyre starts to learn some things. She actually does encounter some awful creatures, which I also learned how to pronounce this, the bogey. She learns about the bogey that's like infecting the lands, and the Naga that's infecting the lands. And Tamlin finally opens up to her about what he calls the blight. And he says that he kind of refers to this woman. We don't know much about her. And the blight is like over the lands, and it's just causing all these issues, and it's going to infect the human lands. And so of course that triggers Feyre into like panicking. And
we don't even mention that everybody in the spring court is wearing
I was just thinking about that. Yeah. So the blight, they have like, we don't even get to like, Tamlin's face is covered the entire and Lucian.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, everyone's is covered. Hence the blight. And the blight is kind of interesting because in the beginning it's mysterious. Like you don't know the details. It's just affecting, it's causing all these different things, the mass, the bogey, all these things. But the second she hears that it can affect the human lands, she's like, well, now I've got to stop the blight.
Yep. Because she's thinking about her family.
So then we get to Calanmai.
Oh, I didn't look up how to pronounce
I don't know how to say it.
I think it's Calanmai. That's yeah, we're right.
Okay.
Calanmai.
Which is this, I guess, party for everyone else. Little festival.
Yeah.
We'll call it that. Where Tamlin, being the High Lord, because, you know, you have to sacrifice so much, has to, and I don't remember if he
spread his seed to the
earth.
There we go.
That's a really good way to say it. So then they have a successful crop next year.
Yes.
And gives Feyre specific instructions, like, do not come in the house. You have to stay in the manor. Do not come out. You know, and she's like, I hear this music. It sounds fun. Why can't I go?
And I understand her wanting to check it out, because the whole time, at first, she's like, I'm a prisoner. And they're like, no, you're not a prisoner, but you are here and you're free to do. And so, like, it seems like they're trying to butter her up. It seems like they're trying to make her feel at ease. But then suddenly, like, no, you can't go here.
Yes.
And so, of course, she's got questions.
She has freedom with a lot of restrictions.
Yes. So
then she goes and gets cornered by some Fae male creeps. I think there are 3 of them. And she's trying to like brush them off. They're kind of getting her, of course, away from the crowd. It's getting sketchy. And as she describes it, like we quoted, the most beautiful man she has ever seen in her life.
Standing before me was the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. I highlighted that, and I highlighted what he said to her. There you are. I've been looking for you, said a deep, sensual male voice I'd never heard.
Honestly, probably one of my favorite lines from the whole series.
Yeah.
So we meet this beautiful man who saves her from these creeps, and that's it. And then he just goes off. And so that's where little Sarah J Maas drops some interesting stuff. But do you want to take it from there?
Sure. I just would also like to point out, because as I was reading it for the second time, this meeting the most beautiful man is almost at page 200. So we're like halfway through the book, and it almost feels like, wow, not much has happened, but you have learned a lot about her anyway and her life. And so I just thought it was interesting as I was rereading it that all of like the really like exciting things happen at the very end, which I guess is very purposeful because there are so many more books, and you're like, because it ends and you're like, oh, now what?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, this mystery beautiful man goes off into the night, and she has this run-in with Tamlin that night, and he is like
feral,
yeah, and he's like, I smelled you and you weren't there, and I had to lay with another or something like that, and he bites her. And it's interesting because this whole time she's been wanting to leave, but even though he acts very brute with her, she's very turned on.
Oh yeah, and
she wants more.
When I read that, I was like, ooh, like,
yes,
if someone's like, oh, I could smell you but you weren't there, it's I don't know, but she reacts differently.
I didn't like the way he spoke to her in terms of like, do what I say and and I was like, I didn't like that.
Yeah,
but so she's kind of turned on by it, but also she plays with that, like, so like when he does say things like that, she likes to play back with him and kind of fight back.
Yeah,
but I think she also enjoys it. Whatever,
she pushes it.
To each their own, right? So time goes on, and of course, like in all the books, the enemies become lovers, or she falls in love with him, and it seems like he's falling in love with her as well. He gets her all of these paint supplies because it's finally when she realizes that there really is nothing to go home to. She's kind of accepting her fate and even thinking about, maybe I can enjoy life here. And what is something I'd really like to do? I'd like to paint. And in the book, which I love, actually, every time she's describing things, she's describing them as she would paint them.
Yes, and titling everything.
Yes, what colors she would use. And it helps you kind of understand the mood and the feeling of everything that is surrounding her, which I really love. So, yeah, they're falling in love. They go on these beautiful, like, little excursions together. He takes her to this, what is it? The pool of starlight. This pool of starlight, which I thought was really interesting, and which I had highlighted, I think, in just chapter 2, where she would paint in her house, and she painted on this chest of drawers. I have to say it really slow because I say drawer. She painted on the drawers things for her and her sister. And for her sister Elaine, it was all like flowers and violets and roses, because all she ever wanted to do was do gardening. And her sister Nesta, who was just like biatch, she painted crackling flames, which really encapsulates her so perfectly, because she is just, you can tell that there's like a burning rage inside of her.
Oh yeah.
But for Feyre, she painted the night sky and stars. And so that really stood out to me. And then her in the starlight pool, she was just having her moment with him. So they end up falling in love. But then we get a visit from a high fae, Rhysand. His name is Rhysand. Rhys, whatever. And Tamlin and Lucien glamour Feyre they don't want him knowing that she is there, or that they have a human there. He sees through it eventually.
Oh yeah.
And he is very intrigued by it, and they fight, and you kind of learn a little bit about this guy and how he's like the lady that they were talking about, Amarantha. He's like her whore, or her pet. So basically, you get the sense that maybe he's not on her side, but he's doing her bidding, and this is how this guy is surviving. But he also comes off kind of creepy.
I forgot to note a key thing in this interaction is Rhysand asks what her name is.
Yes.
Once he figures out she's there. And Feyre says Claire Batter.
Yeah.
Which at the time you're like, wow, good on her, like quick on your feet.
Yeah.
And then that comes back. So that's just really key.
Yeah, it does come back.
Moment.
It does come back. So in the future, if you were ever taken by someone, just make up a complete name, like an address. Like, don't give someone's real name. So I think it's at this point where they realize that, well, now everybody knows that there is this human girl there. But at the same time, Feyre is kept in the dark. Tamlin does not, he tells her like half truths.
Yes,
He
absolutely.
explains things just a little bit in almost a way of like, get off my back. Like, this is all you need to know. But of course, he probably should have realized I think it's by this time, it's like several months that they've spent together, that she is very inquisitive and she's always going to try and find things out. So she's just thinking it's just bad that a human is here. But there's something deeper going on. And so Tamlin realizes that this Amarantha definitely is going to know that she's here and they're all in danger, especially her. So he sends her. Sends her home. And she's just like, no, like, I finally love this place. I finally feel like this is home. I've got these feelings for you. And of course, is this the first time that they go to bed with each other? I think so.
I can't remember exactly.
Because I feel like they were like kissing and like heavy petting type of stuff. But like, this is the first time that they actually, so they like consummate their relationship here. And then,
but not with their words.
No.
Which is key.
Yes, not with their words. And there's a point where he kind of like late in the night or early in the morning, whatever it is, he's like, you should get some rest. It's a long journey tomorrow. And she's like, what? After that? Like, she was thinking she convinced him to let her stay. And he's like, no, you're still going. And then he like whispers to her as she's falling asleep. I think he magicked her to fall asleep. And he whispers to her, I love you. And she's just thinking, was that real? Did I imagine it?
And she doesn't say it back.
She doesn't. And in the morning, he sends her off again, and Lucien is like very disappointed in her. He's like, and he's trying to ask Hamlin just like a couple more days, give it a couple more days. And I don't know why that didn't make her wonder, like, what do you mean give it a couple more days? Like, what could happen in those 2 days? And then he says it to her again as he sends her off. And was it a carriage? I can't even remember.
I think so.
I think so. And she doesn't say it back.
No.
And I think her reasoning was like, well, if I have to be sent away, why do I say it? It's just going to make things harder. And then, I would have screamed it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I would have been like, I'm not going.
Which I think there's like, eventually we learn something deeper. But another interesting thing about her going home, we can call it the human lands, is Tamlin has taken care of her family.
Yes.
Like, they are wealthy. Her dad is trading again.
They live in their own manor now.
Yes. And he like wiped their memories or made them think that Pharaoh was off with like a great aunt who was dying. And so when she comes back, it's this whole like, oh, you were at great aunt whomever's place.
And that she passed away and now Pharaoh's amassed like her great fortune. And so that's where they're at. So she gets back to the new house or whatever, and she sees that they're living well. Elaine is just living her best life. She's got her garden. She's just so happy. The dad, and we didn't even mention a bit in the beginning, he's got like this limp leg and that's why he doesn't move so much. But now he's moving a little bit more. He's feeling better. But the only person who has not changed is Nesta. She's got this face on her where she looks suspicious immediately. And it turns out that like that glamour that he put on the family did not work on her.
Which is like not surprising.
It's not. She saw right through it. And she was like, and she ends up telling her, like that night, like basically she went through days of going, am I crazy? Because they don't remember this anymore. She's like, but this really did happen. And it turns out that she actually took the 2 or 3 days journey, try to get into Prythian and couldn't get in. But I think I highlighted what she said about her sister too, which I thought was really important, because the whole time you kind of hate Nesta in the beginning and you think like, how awful and everything, but this is what I had highlighted. But she had cared, beneath it she had cared, and perhaps loved more fiercely than I could comprehend, more deeply and loyally.
Oh yeah.
So I realize in another book she'll come back. You tell me.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's so much more to this girl. I think she's just been so deeply hurt and let down, and she's got this big wall, but she still does care.
The sisters come back quite quickly, and Nesta has her own book. Good. Which, to be honest, I didn't really love Nesta.
But you liked her in the book?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, because I have a feeling I will end up liking her. I'm still mad that she let her sister do everything. But so anyway, so she goes back. She realizes that the glamour that didn't work on her. She goes. She wants to go see their old cottage. She hears about the cottage or the manor nearby that was burned down. And it so happens to be the home of Claire Better. And her whole family died in that fire, but they never found Claire's body. And immediately Feyre's like, oh, I think
I messed up.
My bad. This clearly has something to do with me. And so immediately she's like, I need to get back. Yep. Something bad is coming.
Oh, yeah.
And so she tells Nesta, like, you know, whatever you hear, you need to start preparing. And the first sign of something bad, you got to get them out. Mm-hmm. And I think when she says the word or the name Prythian, that's when her dad and Elaine, their glamour is gone and they remember it too. And so she goes off to go back. And she goes on that journey to go back. But I don't know how many days it's been now. So I don't really know what she was expecting to go back to. I feel like once you realize that this Claire's family has been murdered, really, it's been so many days and now it's going to be so many days for you to get back. I don't know what she thought she was going to find, if Tamlin was going to still be there at the house. But when she gets there, it's like destroyed, like broken in. It looks like there's blood on the floor. There's signs of a struggle. No one is there. The place is ransacked. And then she runs into the, what would you call her? Like the maid. She's not really a maid, but she's like a servant. She works for Tamlin. Her name is Alice. And when she was there originally, Alice was the one getting her dressed, doing her hair, kind of giving her a few tips about life there and, you know, not to ask too many questions. Well, she runs into her and she sees that she's like putting things in a sack, trying to find like any bits of food or supplies. And this is where she tells her, thank God, everything that went down. Because Feyre at this point was like, you might as well just tell me what happened. And do you want to
So this is where Feyre learns the full truth of all the half-truths that Tamlin had told her. So Tamlin was purposely sending his own men to the human land in their beast form, wolf, whatever it may be. Because he knew the only way to stop the blight was to have a Fae hating human with like every bone in their body hating Fae fall in love with him.
And that would break
the curse.
Their curse.
So he continuously sent these men and Feyre kills one. And so that whole time, all they needed
was for her
Feyre to say, I love you.
And to mean it, and to truly mean it.
And so Alice tells her that they have been taken under the mountain, which is this place where Amarantha is and Rhysand. And that's where they are, and she's holding them there. And Feyre decides, well, I messed up twice because I didn't say I love you and I dropped Claire's name. Me, little human Feyre, is going to go save the whole spring court under the mountain. And so she gets the details and off she goes.
Yeah. And then immediately upon arriving, is taken and captured
immediately by the Adder.
However,
I don't know.
But this creature that is very scary immediately takes her and brings her right to Amarantha. And she sees they're like at like a throne room, and Tamlin is sitting right next to her. He still has his mask on, but at this point he's just stone soup, right? He just doesn't move. He doesn't react to her. His eyes don't even react to her, which I'm not gonna lie, I'm sure it was like, I'm trying to be cool so that nothing happens to her, but at the same time, like a little like nod or a tear or something to let this girl who's risking her entire life know that, I don't know, you care, that you're there or whatever. And then it turns out that Amarantha, so like we learn in the story that she had a sister who fell in love with a human who, according to the story at this point, his name is Jurian, and Amarantha had this suspicion that he was really just canoodling with his sister to get information on them and their army to take them down, for the humans to take the Fae down. And I forget now, the sister dies, but they say the Jurian.
So the sister ends up, they have this like plan, Miriam? that how you say it? I don't know. The sister.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought it was something with a C. Clithia?
Oh,
Lord.
yeah.
I think it was Clithia.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of another book.
Well, yeah, because they're connected to Jurian too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, you're gonna have to fact check that for me. But
Yeah, Clithia.
okay, yep.
Okay. Am
so
I pronouncing it right? Probably
knows?
not, but it is. That was
You
the
tell
sister.
this story because I'm gonna bring in people that get this story all messed
Yeah.
up.
Okay, because Miriam comes up in the second
Yep.
book. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So according to the story, as it is in this book, is that Jurian, even though he was in love with Clithia, Amarantha's sister, has her killed or gets her killed in some way, whatever. And so Amaranthia blames Jurian for this and always knew this was going to happen. And so her wrath on humans gets out of control. She tortures him to the point where she keeps one of his fingers, right? I think it's his finger.
His eyeball.
And his eye.
Yes,
it was both. It was the finger and the eye. And the eye is like still alive. But she keeps that eye to like show him what she has done.
Yes.
Because of him. And so that's why she put this curse of like, you will only break because humans hate the Fae. Mm-hmm. And so that will never happen. So when she sees Feyre, and Feyre walks in and she sees this body hanging on the wall or nailed to the wall or whatever, and she realizes this poor Claire, who is dead.
It's like, it's not funny.
No.
But Rhysand's face too, like you've got to know when they went to Claire Better's house.
Yeah.
And he saw Claire Better.
Yeah.
And he kept his mouth shut.
Yeah.
And he was just probably like, wow, bold move. Yeah. Bold move, Feyre. Yeah. Once he eventually learns her name.
Yeah. But the thing is, too, she was thinking in the moment, like, he knew that wasn't her. Yeah. He saw her face and he recognized her. Yes. Oh, he didn't even say that he was the one. Mm-hmm. He was the beautiful man that saved her at Calamai. And so he recognized her because he had said something when he saw her. So he knew that wasn't her. And he let this girl die in her place. Yes.
And when Amarantha says something when Feyre first gets there, he plays the like,
they all look alike.
They look the same. All these humans. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, he's just, which is so funny because he's painted as like her whore, but like Tamlin has the seat next to her, and he's just like, I picture him like in the crowd and everyone looking at him and him being like, I don't know. Sorry, they just look the same. Like,
it was at this point in the book that I was remembering about how like she called this guy this beautiful man. I'm like, at least this man is playing games. It seems like, I got the feeling he didn't like being this girl's pet or whatever. Yes. But Tamlin just kind of gives into it. He feels like maybe playing the silent game is the way to go, but he's not fighting at all. Yeah. He doesn't fight for her. So Amarantha goes, you know what? Such a brave little human to come here. This will be fun. And I get to play with you. And Tamlin didn't even react when we killed Claire. So maybe this will be more fun now. I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to give you 3 trials. And if you can pass these 3 trials, you can go free. And
she'll release the Fae.
I'll release the Fae. And, you guys can go and lift the curse. And Feyre was trying to remember things that Alice told her about making deals, and things have to be very specific. So she just kept asking questions like, and we can leave and everybody can go. And she's like, yep. But then she says to her, but if you solve this riddle, you guys can be released immediately. No trials at all. And she spouts off this riddle that, of course, Feyre can't answer. And so in the meantime, she agrees to do these 3 trials. But in the meantime, she is like their prisoner. And she has to await. And I think there's 1 a month.
Yep, because it's every certain moon.
Moon, yeah. And so in the meantime of her being their prisoner, she is beaten.
Yep.
She is starved.
And just to like do silly tasks like cleaning stuff that's like
impossible to clean. And she's freezing.
And all these people come to her and help her out during this because you see the Adder immediately, who knows, immediately beats her up.
Lucian breaks her nose.
Yes, Lucian comes in, fixes her arm. Then we've got one of her tasks. She has to clean something that's impossible to clean. And at one point, when she asks for
her name,
she's about to like kill Lucian, and so Feyre finally gives her name. So Lucian's mother cleans it for her. This is like a
she's
debt.
Like, yeah, my debt has been paid.
Yep.
And that's that.
So yeah, and then the first full moon comes around and trial number 1 starts, which is, for some reason I always forget this is the first trial.
Yeah.
Because I just call it the Worm. Yes. I can't say the full name.
And it's funny, when I was rereading it, and I was just like, something about worms lately, because you have the worm in, I don't know if you've ever seen Dune.
Yeah.
So they have like that worm, and then in Beetlejuice there's the sandworm. So I was like picturing an amalgamation of those two different types of worms. Either way, it's gross and it's scary. And she's like in this mud pit, and Amarantha's just like, well, you're a huntress, so go hunt. And she ends up in this like in the worms like feeding pit. Correct. Where all these bones are left, and she gets the idea of like using the bones to kind of help as a ladder to get her out of the pit. But then she comes up with an even better idea to use those bones and crack them so that like when the worm goes over it, he basically impales himself. And in the process of doing that, she has to cut her arm to get him to smell the blood and come after her. Yeah, because she figures this all out. She's actually very smart in this point. This is a strong point. She can't read,
but she's smart.
She cannot read, but she is very smart at hunting. She knows how to like life-saving, not life-saving, what would I say, like survival skills. She's very good at that. And so she ends up winning this task, but her arm is destroyed to the point where she was seeing like tendons and bone. And she's dying in a sense because she's in mud with feces and gross and sick, right? And so
no one cleans her when she goes back to the dungeon.
Nope, they just put her back in the dungeon, bloodied, mud all over her, and like I think a couple of days go by and she ends up getting this fever.
And she thinks Lucian's coming the whole time. Yeah, because he came and fixed the first arm. But surprise, surprise.
Yeah, in comes Mr. Rhysand, and he makes a deal with her.
And I think it's interesting because at this point, you're starting to question him a little bit more. Why does he make this deal? Like, she has to spend a week every month with him afterwards.
And he says for the rest of her life.
Yep. And she's almost to the point where she won't do it. And he kind of has to, like convince her to do it and also kind of, like, agitate her. And she is going to die. It's, like, very clear that she's going to die. And so she agrees.
She does. And then in doing so, he does fix her arm, but then she's tattooed with like his, I don't want to, like his stand. It's like a sign of the Night Court. And she's just immediately disgusted by this. Like she's branded, you know, but then she's got this eye on the palm of her hand and that freaks her out. And she just feels like I sold my soul to this guy. Like he owns me. But as a reader, you're wondering, okay, there's the difference between helping someone and getting a little something from them, but then why would you want them for the rest of their life to come and see? So I started, again, I'm thinking about the most beautiful man I ever seen and the way he introduced himself to her. And I just felt like there's more to this guy. And immediately I know he's a bad guy, but I like him. Because I don't think he's all that bad.
No. Even though he does make her join him at the parties every evening.
Yes.
And gives her the fairy wine, and which kind of it sounds like it has the effects of like it loosens her up. She doesn't remember things, which in the end we learn he did it intentionally. Like he wasn't trying to be a creep by doing it.
Because I think it was just the way for her to get through it without having all these memories too. But we do find out that he is a high fae. He's a lord just like Tamlin is. But
of the cruel, cruel Night Court.
Of the cruel Night Court, which is interesting because night, stars, like all these things that she loves, and that's what he's a part of. And I noted at one point in the book, because she was always like talking back to him and saying nasty things, and he would kind of quip back like, oh, is this how you won Tamlin's heart, you know? And she had said the instincts that had once told me to be quiet around Tam and Lucian utterly failed me when Rhysand was near. So it was like she had no qualms just speaking her truth and her mind to him, which I think is super important. So.
And then the second trial comes up, which is not funny, but it is funny.
I know, it's so sad. Because basically she has to read and figure out a riddle and pick a door that answers the riddle, and she's just standing there like...
And Lucian's about to die because she can't read.
And there's like this thing coming down that will like pretty much splatter him to death, like squish him to death if she doesn't get the door right.
And it's just like his life comes down to this illiterate human.
Yes, and she's just wondering like who knew. But she's trying to pick a number. She's like, well, I'm just going to pick a number. 2 must be the number because it's the 2 of us, whatever. And she goes to pull that lever, and her hand that's got that eye on it is burning.
Yes.
And then she like tries it, and it was burning again. She's like, okay, then I'll go to number 1. And then it was burning. And then she locks eyes with Reeson, and he's just staring at her, looking bored.
Yes.
But she goes to the second one again, and it's burning. So then she goes to the third, and it's not burning. And she's like, oh.
Yeah.
And she pulls it and realizes that he's got this connection with her now.
Lucian's just shocked.
Yeah.
Because
I think they said that he was kissing the floor. Yes. He was so happy.
He knew he was done.
Yeah.
But then I just feel like after that, it's a lot of like the parties and her small tasks. And
yeah, but I think after that too, she's also very broken because she realized that she did get through the first task by her grit, right? But the second one, if it hadn't been for Reese, she would have been done. And I think at this point she's thinking, there's no way I can survive the next one because there's no way this woman is going to let me.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's feeling very defeated. She's going to these parties with Reese, which, you know, she's always pretty much naked with like these gossamer robes. And Tamlin, all this time, has not acknowledged her. And she is hanging on by mere threads. And this guy who she's there to save because she loves him so much has done nothing. And so at this point, she's just feeling very broken. And then we get to the third trial, which is something that also breaks her in a sense.
Yeah, they bring in the 3 Fae, which are hooded. I forgot that detail. And she has a knife, 1 for each. And she has to kill them. And, you know, the first 2 are just like, kill me. Just do it.
Yeah.
Which obviously she has a hard time with because they're innocent. And they make that very clear. These people are innocent. And she's like about to lose it. And they pull the hood off that third one. And it's Tamlin.
Yeah.
But Miss Alice dropped a comment way back when, and I can't remember the context of it, about his stone heart.
Yes.
Now I would have taken that as a figure of speech.
Yes, absolutely.
And Farrah decides in this moment to latch onto that like a true fact and went, well, I guess we'll see if this is right.
Here goes nothing.
And sure enough, he has a stone heart. Which is very interesting, and I don't really remember it. I don't think we ever get clarity on that, even in the like later books.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens.
Wait, no, wait a second. Wasn't there like there's a struggle? Like, doesn't Reese try to get the knife? Like, there's like a moment where she was like, I want to kill this chick.
The Fae are still trapped.
Yeah.
Like, Amarantha has not done what she was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And she's like, I never said when.
Exactly. Because I remember in the book where she was thinking about, because when she mentioned about like, well, and if you answer this, I'll release you immediately. And that's when Pharaoh was like, wait a second. Immediately we get released if I answer the riddle. She didn't say immediately when I do the task. She's like, no, but I can't think about that. But then she was thinking about how Alice said that you've got to be very particular with Fae and their words. And so, she does not.
Rhysand goes straight for Amarantha. He's like, she's going down.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill her. And that doesn't work out. And then Amarantha has some plans of her own. And she offs Farrah. And Farrah is dying, but like kind of there. And this is where kind of my order of events goes off. And I want to say it's, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Rhysand that gets the lords together?
I believe so, but does she answer the riddle before?
And that's what I was just thinking. I cannot remember exactly.
She answers the riddle before the lords get together or after. I think it's before. Oh boy.
I think I found it. Man. This is where Yeah, I mean, she doesn't just immediately kill Feyre.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep, here
Yes,
it is.
it was right before.
Right before.
Yeah.
Love, I breathe. The answer to the riddle, I got choking on my own blood, is love. Tamlin's eyes went wide before something forever cracked my spine. There she goes.
Mm-hmm.
There she goes.
There she goes.
Yep. But she's still there. She's seeing this all happen. Once she dies, she sees this happen.
Mm-hmm. It's like she's like outside of her body.
But then she realizes she was actually seeing it through a certain person's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucien is one like panicking.
And he's doing nothing.
Yeah.
He's doing nothing. And then it's Rhysand who comes and he tries to help her. And then I forget how it is that it happens, but basically all the High Lords come together.
I found it right here.
To use okay.
They all approach, and Rhysand steps forward first, bringing a shred of my soul with him, as she describes it. And I found Tamlin staring at me, and then Rhysand says, "For what she gave." Mm-hmm. Then he extends his hand. "Will bestow what our have granted us before. This makes us even." And then a seed of light fell on her. And then, yes. Actually, I think... Oh, Rhysand's the last one to do it.
Okay.
Rhysand's the last one. And then Tamlin says, "I love you," he whispered and kissed me as he laid his hand on my heart. And then everything goes black. Bada bing, bada boom. Feyre's back. And she's high fae.
Yes. Yes. And they walk out.
Yeah.
They walk out, and it's kind of like, what now?
Yep. And it ends with, and there's a very key part before they leave, which is wild to me that they stay under the mountain for a night, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would have gotten the hell
out. Oh my God. Immediately gone.
Like, magic me out of here.
They spend the night in this place,
mm-hmm.
and Feyre is awoken by this pull. She can't tell what it is. Mm-hmm. And surprise, surprise, mm-hmm. It's Rhysand. Mm-hmm. And now, she's high fae, her senses are heightened, mm-hmm. and they're talking, and then he looks at her, and then all of a sudden, he has this expression on her face, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And mm-hmm. he's like, "I gotta go now.
Yeah.
Goodbye." Mm-hmm. Which we learn later on. Yeah. It's a key moment there.
So I read these books because you had recommended them. And I remember I read it over the summer. And again, I think I texted you when I got to the beautiful man part. And I was like, who is this guy? Why do I feel like he's important? And then when that happened, I texted you and I said, is he who she is supposed to be with? And you were just like, just keep reading. But spoiler, I feel like it's just so obvious.
Oh, yeah.
It's so obvious that this is the guy that because they talk about in the beginning because Tamlin talks about that their fae are mated. Mm-hmm. That sometimes they get married to other fae who mm-hmm. are not their mates, but typically they are mated. Yep. Like there's this bond, and he talked about like his parents being mated and their bond, and how like even though the mom didn't always agree with what the dad did, which was like having humans for slaves and mm-hmm. stuff like that, that was her mate. Yeah. And so like there was no...
Which is interesting. Rhysand's parents are the same way.
Yeah, there was no like breaking that. Yep. And so the fact that he had that like just such a strong visceral reaction to seeing her, and the fact that she kept feeling this pull to him, mm-hmm. or even just going back, the fact that he was like in her mind, or the things about the stars. And I was like, oh my God, it can't be any more obvious.
And then they go home to the spring court.
Yeah, but then she goes home with Tamlin, which is...
I hate the spring court. I'm just like, I don't want to go back.
At first, when you're first introduced to it, it does sound very nice. Yeah. Like the flowers and the gardens, and how it's always the springtime and nice and everything. And of course, it's such a drastic change from the horrible life that mm-hmm. she had. But in the end, this guy was never honest with her. Yep. And he always kept her in the dark. Now, Alice does make mention that because of the curse, they physically could not speak of it.
Yes.
Otherwise, something would happen to them. But there definitely would be ways of them to say, there is a curse on us and we are not allowed to speak of it.
Yes.
You know, like there could have been things to avoid a lot of the issues.
Also, shout out to the one character that I literally speak so highly of, and I did not mention him. The Suriel. My guy.
Yes, we forgot about the Suriel.
I didn't even put it.
So he's like this
truth teller.
This creature of truth, right? This truth teller, but very, you have to catch him.
Yeah.
And you have to like offer it gifts for it to like actually come to you or whatever.
So she traps him to figure out like, how do I get out of this loophole? And
yeah, she like, keeps thinking,
no, stay with the High Lord.
He will keep you safe.
But what one?
Exactly. All he doesn't say Tamlin. He doesn't say Spring Court. He just says, stay with the High Lord and he will keep and you will be safe.
And Sarah J Maas describes him so grotesque, but I love him, and like he comes back and he just wants to gossip. I really think he wants to be caught. I think he loves. He's got
a lot of juicy secrets.
Oh my god, he loves telling them things, but not the whole way. Or like, oh, you didn't know that? Surprise, surprise! And then just
I pictured just Suriel almost like a golem type creature. You know, he's just like always like watching, and he knows.
I love him.
Yes.
So shout out to the Suriel because I didn't give you the respect you deserve.
So that is, in a nutshell, the first book.
In a nutshell, probably 20 plus minutes.
I know, I'm so sorry. You still want to read it though?
Yes, you do, because we don't even come close to
giving it all justice, and the things that she goes through, and the steamy descriptions of her feelings towards some of these men. Even Reese, there are moments of where she was like, "Oh, what am I feeling?"
Yeah,
and he picks up on that too.
But I will say, if you've read Sarah J Maas before, you know everything is so embedded, and there are so many theories out there. Mm-hmm. So, without going into the other books, some of the A Court of Thorns and Roses specific theories. One that I think the most interesting one I mentioned to you was a theory that Amarantha and Tamlin are mates. Mm-hmm. And the more I think about it, the more I can see the possibility.
Because why was she so fixated on him? And so obsessed with him being with her in her court.
Yes.
And sitting at her side.
Yes. And he can obviously deny it. And Tamlin, like, when she, like, dies, he has this moment of, like, I don't know, he's just weird. Like, it's kind of a weird, you've got, like, Feyre over here, and this is going on, and it just doesn't feel like Tamlin is 100% like with Feyre, who like, oh, if someone's dying that you love, I don't know. It's an interesting theory, and
it's almost like too that whole time where he was all stone and stoic. Is it because he feels this compulsion to not disobey her, not for like safety reasons, but because they have this bond? Mm-hmm. So that is an interesting theory. I would totally believe that.
And like you said, with Tamlin's parents being mated, but they didn't necessarily agree and get along. Mm-hmm. Rhysand's parents are mated, the same thing. Like, didn't necessarily always agree and get along. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not necessarily the perfect love match. But
there's something primal about it that connects the characters.
You never know. And then there's some other theories that are just like a little more of a stretch for me. Mm-hmm. We learn like Rhysand, his sister was like killed, and people want to say that was Tamlin's mate at one point. So like there's this whole, everyone like debates Tamlin's mate type of thing.
But it's obvious that it's not Feyre.
Yeah, very much not Feyre. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what one I believe, but there are those theories out there. And you know, when you read the whole series and the amount of theories, it's just like mind-blowing. And then if you read Sarah J Maas has another series, and then the theories get intertwined, and it's just like,
so her other series is connected to this, like it's the same world?
No.
Oh.
So you have the Throne of Glass series, which is not the same world, and I can't think of what it's called. Irelia? I don't know. But there are a lot of like people want to say certain characters in here are connected or like descendants of them.
Okay.
And then she has another series I actually haven't read, the Crescent City series, and that is more futuristic.
Okay.
Part of me just doesn't want to finish out the Sarah J Maas like universe quite yet, even though she's still writing. But yeah, the Throne of Glass series she started when she was like a teenager.
What?
Wild. This woman's mind is insane in the best way. But anyway, back to Acotar.
I was just gonna say it's nothing like Harry Potter, but what I'm already been looking for are nuggets. The way J.K. Rowling in the very first book put little nuggets of what's to come.
Oh yeah, she does that.
I've been noticing, like, I feel like this is important when she talks about this, or throwing like certain little things that are thrown in and maybe said more than once. I've been highlighting it because I've been reading it on my iPad. I'm like, I think these are important. I think these are nuggets. Like I'm learning, like the fire about Nesta. Yes. Like, okay, like there's something to that.
You catch all of it on the reread.
Yes.
Like you could definitely read it once and be like, oh, wait a second, I kind of remember something. But then you do the reread and you're like, oh, whoa, time out. Like now that I know, this is so obvious in my face. Yes. And
actually, what I love about us even just talking about the book is that it helps me remember it, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I read a book and I love it, and then a couple of months go by and I can tell you just a little bit here and there of what the book was about. So actually saying it out loud, I feel like I'm going to forever remember the book.
Yes. And especially the funny thing is, this is, other than A Court of Frost and Starlight and Frost, it's like a mini book in between Acotar and then the book Silver Flames about Nesta. This is the smallest one.
Really?
Which is crazy because you think about how much has happened in it. Yes. Which you made the point, like 200 pages in, and like they don't even go under the mountain.
Yeah, you haven't even gotten to her finding out what's going on.
Yeah. It's wild. Like she comes back. I can't even remember where exactly she came back, but it's so far. When I read it on my second read, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, we're not even under the mountain yet, and I know all this stuff is going to happen under the mountain. Unreal. Yeah, chapter 33, she says, I might have been going to my death, but I wouldn't arrive unarmed. And she straps herself up, and then this is when she takes off. 291.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's what I said. It was just like, you feel like nothing significant happened, but it did. Yeah. Because you are learning a lot, right? There's a lot of background that you have to get in this book. But when you realize all the things that are to come, you're like, damn, like we haven't even scratched the surface yet. So I am excited to get into the other books. I'm going to reread the second one before I start the third.
Second one is the best one.
I really enjoyed the second one. So I'm excited to reread that one and then get back. The second one made me happy. I'll just say that.
People really like Silver Flames, where you get Nesta. I don't know. I really did enjoy it. I really like the second one too. Acotar, the third one. It's necessary, but it, like, I'm rereading it right now and it's like I'm having a hard time.
Really?
Well, it's like, it's literally called A Court of War and Ruins, or Wrath and Ruin. My God, I can't function today.
People are going to hate you.
God, I'm gonna get so many people yell at me. I swear I know it. But it's just, there's a lot of logistic stuff in there. So you're like, and then there's the fan cast, which I feel like every podcast I listen to about Acotar always has a fan cast. And I feel good about my choices, except Rhysand. I'm not happy with him, and I don't think I will be happy with an actor for him, because there's, like you and I were saying, the fan art is painting this clear picture, and I need the actor to match that.
Yeah.
And I can't find that yet.
And I think it's because he is drawn or created in this art so perfectly.
I know.
So dreamy and perfect, but also just perfectly matches the description in the book that anything that not derives, anything that strays from that would be, that's not him.
Yeah.
You know? And we talked about coming up with like, oh, who would you cast? And I told you this already, but I realized my age when looking up actors for this because one, I didn't realize how young she was, but then also I guess an older gentleman, and I don't mean super old, but an older guy could play our High Lords because they are like 300 years old.
Yeah.
But in my looking online for what other people were picking, they were actors that I really did not know. They were like a lot of young babies, and with the exception of like the girl for Nesta, the girl from Vampire Diaries.
Yes.
She was a perfect fit.
Oh yeah.
She was perfect.
Phoebe Tonkin.
She's got that bitchiness to her, but also you know that there's something underneath her. Yeah. I think also from Vampire Diaries, the guy that played Klaus, I think that would be a good Tamlin because he also has that like, he's blonde, but he also can be soft, but he's mainly like gruff and angry and doesn't tell you things. And so I would go with that. And then I guess I'm just going to hire the cast of Vampire Diaries. Ian Somerhalder, I think he would be a great reason. But I'm not going to lie, when I first read it, my first read through, and I know you're going to hate this, my Reese, and he doesn't match the description, but my Reese was Tom Hiddleston. I love him so much.
Do you know where I read someone said,
I love him so much. And he's dark hair and he's pale and he's got the blue eyes, and I was just, that's who I wanted to come take me away.
Do you know what someone said online for him?
Oh no.
The cereal.
Kira.
This just kills me because I saw that today.
No. No.
I agree. Not with the cereal. Oh, but I did see that today. Oh, that's funny.
Moving on.
See,
Tom forever.
Tamlin and Lucien and Rhysand, the three of them, they have to be a very specific actor because obviously we can change hair colors and you can wear wigs, but in my head, it can't. Like, whoever is Tamlin has to be a blonde naturally, and whoever is Lucien has to be a redhead naturally, and that's where I went. So, like, my Tamlin was Austin Butler. Just give him a wig, grow it out a bit, call it good. And then my Lucien was KJ Apa, which is like flaming red hair. His eyebrows would probably have to dye or something, but I just couldn't get away from their hair color. And then I was casting Bridgerton people.
Okay.
Because I did. Okay, and people are going to come at me because I've seen a lot of people flip-flopping these two and whatever. I don't care. And I can't pronounce her last name. But for Feyre, I had Phoebe Denever? I don't know. It's Daphne in Bridgerton. It's like season 1, female main character. That's who I picked. And then I said the same thing, Nesta, the Phoebe Tonkin. And then Elaine was another Bridgerton character or actor. And that's Hannah Dodd. A lot of people want to put Hannah Dodd as Feyre, which, like, I'll give them that. That's fine. I don't know. Feyre to me has to be feminine and soft, but knows how to hunt. She's not going to be the extreme of Nesta.
No.
But she can stand her own.
I think she's like unassuming.
Yes. And Elaine, bless her heart, she has to be this precious, soft, like,
just like angelic,
innocent,
like, just not a care in the world, like just thinking about things will always get better and you'll take care of it.
Sometimes it makes me hate Elaine.
Yes. Because it's like, how do you get to be so in your bubble still?
Yeah.
Because even when they're struggling and starving, she still has like that aura about her of like, someone will fix it. It's not going to be me, but someone's going to fix it.
And there's Nesta who like doesn't do anything when they're poor, but like hates the world. And I don't know, they're just so interesting to me. And like the last book that I don't even remember when it comes out at this point, probably spring. I think it gets postponed. The book that hasn't been released, I think we get more about Elaine.
Okay.
But she's just, I'm not even talking about Rhysand because I can't cast anyone. I am too upset about that. Amarantha, I forgot how to say her last name, but you said it earlier. Jessica
Chastain.
Chastain.
I think that's a perfect pick for her.
Same. And I can't remember if Amarantha actually has red hair or if it's described, but she looked perfect. And then I cast a Suriel because he's my guy. And it's Bill Skarsgård. Which I feel bad for him because this guy, like, you think about the movies he's in.
Yeah, but he was Pennywise, so
he's in all the scary movies.
So he's got that creepy factor about him. He can pull it off. He can do the voices. I think.
And I know actors talk about, like, sometimes when they get cast in a role, they get like pigeonholed into that type of thing. So that's why I feel bad for him. But I love the Suriel. He's not a bad guy in my eyes. So, like,
he's just misunderstood.
Yeah, he is. But that's my cast. Like I said, Rhysand, when I find the perfect one, I'll let you know, but I haven't yet. It just needs to be, like, manly and, like, he's big. In my eyes, he's bigger than Tamlin. Like, muscular-wise, he's bigger than Tamlin. But he's not massive. He needs to have the right... This is very specific. He needs to have the right, like, cheeks. And, like, the face has
like, it's
to be...
very... what's the word I'm looking for? But I think I know what you're talking about. Like, there's just a very specific, like, bone structure.
Yes. Because he can dress very nice and pull that off. But then he's also described as, like, this murderous, like... crazy powerful High Lord. So, like, I need the happy medium between the two. And I can't find any actors.
Someone who can go from looking like you're scared of his fierceness, but then also, wow, is he attractive?
Yeah, like, oh my god, I'm actually very turned on by this. Like, wow, you're terrifying for other people, but for me,
this is wonderful.
And I haven't come across that actor quite yet.
No, I don't think that person exists.
I know. And there are so many rumors, like, oh, they're going to do a TV show. Oh, they're going to do this.
But this kind of... The question I have about this book is, what is it about male characters like him that we love so much? Why do I love this guy who is kind of scary, but I like it? Because I'm going to tell you, if I saw somebody on the street who was very scary, I don't think I would be turned on by it. But there's something about... Is it that I can fix him? Is it but he doesn't want to kill me? What is it?
I think that's it. Like, oh, this man can kill all of you by looking at you.
But he doesn't want to do that to me.
But he won't kill me.
Because I'm special.
I'm perfect.
Yeah.
And having that power...
I think that's what it is. It's something about, like, I'm the chosen one. I'm the one that breaks the rule, breaks the mold. Like, not me.
And I'll... personal problem. Tamlin and Lucien, I will never find attractive. No offense. I don't like males with long hair.
Yeah.
So the second I read a fantasy book, and there's another series I've read where the main character, you love him so much, and I swear to you, I have to skip over every description of his hair because I just can't do it. And so Rhysand, he fits everything. That I'll kill everyone else, but not you. I've got the jet black hair,
the piercing violet
eyes. I just picture him with the most amazing bone structure in his face. And then Tamlin can put his hair in a ponytail, and I just can't do that.
Yeah.
I also am a blonde, and I'm just... The blonde thing is just... No. And no offense to the redheads, but sorry, Lucien.
Lucien just immediately... I was like, he's your friend.
He is.
He's the guy you can depend on.
His eye gives me a little bit of...
Oh, yeah. I don't think we mentioned he's got this metal swirling eye.
And he's described like a fox. Also, I don't think I could fall in love with someone with a mask on.
Me either. But see, isn't that what Amarantha said? That like humans are so vain that
Yeah.
they couldn't get past someone in a mask.
Well, there I am.
Yeah, I guess.
2020, I wouldn't have been able to find anyone. Would have been a hard time.
As teachers, did you ever have a kid take off their mask and that you've seen them all year with the mask on and they took it off and you go, whoa, it was not what I was expecting.
And what if Feyre had that with Tamlin?
I know. Speaking of Beauty and the Beast, did you ever see like the people talking about when the Beast turns human at the end in the cartoon one? And or even in the movie one now, the live action, where Belle has that reaction of like, oh, it's almost like she wants him to go back to being the Beast. But yeah,
I feel like that's got to be hard. And like,
yeah,
what if you don't even know what you're getting? I don't know.
If all you're seeing are eyes, like I'm just saying, just even just people during COVID when those kids took their mask off, like that, I did not expect you to have that kind of nose.
And obviously, I just end up disliking Tamlin, but I also like. When she's there, you start to kind of dislike the like, oh, I'm not gonna tell you go paint and do your girly things and take a walk in the garden. I would have been like, okay, F you.
Yeah.
Like you have a girl that hunts. She just took down one of your wolves, and you're like, here's some paintbrushes, sweetie. Go in the garden.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go out with Lucian? And then Lucian, of course, is just like, do.
Yeah.
She's like getting attacked, and he's like, la di da. Oh, is something happening?
Oh, I guess I can help.
Still love him, but
yeah.
And then A Court of Mist and Fury, the number one of the series, in most people's opinion, picks up in the Spring Court with old Tam Tam.
And it's spoilers, but I think this is when most readers, I would say, begin to hate Tamlin.
Yeah. If you
didn't realize like how wrong of a match this is.
And I think you start to question him in Acotar, wherever it is. On the reread, you start questioning it obviously much sooner because you know. But once you get under the mountain, and then you have Tamlin and the Rhysand right there, and their actions and the things that are happening, that's when you kind of, I think you're kind of like, like you said, like this isn't endgame, like something's up here.
Yeah, and it's just like they all have a little bit of magic to some degree. I know she has taken most of that away from them. But if Lucian has been able to come and see her and help her, like, is Tamlin under guard 24/7?
And that's the thing. Rhysand's the one that sleeps with Amarantha, like when she wants him to or whatever. Yeah. So where is Tamlin
during this whole time? Yeah, like why can he not just throw her a bone? Like she's a human. She cannot and should not be doing these things.
And Tamlin's like, I think he loses this when he's under the mountain, and I can't quote it for sure, but he's a shapeshifter. You can't shapeshift into a guard and go help her. Yeah, but like I said, I don't know if that is like super hindered when he gets under the mountain.
Maybe. But even just so much as like I remember points where she was just looking at his eyes and trying to get some sort of signal from his eyes or a twitch from his mouth or his hand, and everything was just always like stock still. And I don't know how that didn't break her sooner, because I would have been like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But because she had thought like, oh, he must be magicked into that. And Lucian said, no, he's not under a spell.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I'm sorry. What?
Oh, but he makes out with her in the hallway under the mountain, which Rhysand comes in and was like, oh, your body was covered in paint and now everyone can see where the hands were. So then he's like, well, now I gotta make out with you. And you're like, Tamlin, come on now. You couldn't have given her something. And then you're like, oh my God, let's like.
Yeah.
I didn't like that part. And then, of course, Rhysand is like, well, I gotta fix this. And then they find the two of them making out. And she's like, what the? He's like, you're welcome.
Yeah. And she still continues to hate this man. It's like he has done nothing but throw you bones and help you
literally
along the way. Like, and of course he's doing it in a way where he's like, well, I gotta get something. But he's still like, you have to immediately, when I first read it on the first read, I was like, there is another ulterior motive. Like, he is not for this lady. He is trying to help her in some way, whether it's for his own gain or not, but he's still doing more than anybody else has. So I didn't understand how she just hated him. But I think I'm just thinking now, maybe it's because she's just mad that Tamlin, I don't know why I pronounced it like that Tamlin didn't do anything. And here's this guy that like she doesn't know or she's afraid of. She's supposed to hate, and he's been doing the most. And I think that's what's angering her. And she's just taking it out on him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a lot. And
It
then
is a lot.
the other books become even more characters, more stuff all around, but highly recommend.
Yes. Hopefully we didn't ruin it for you.
And hopefully I messed up plenty, so they're gonna come at me, but I promise I am part of the Sarah J Maas community. Sometimes my memory slips, especially when I'm on the moment. I'm trying to look for. I have my book somewhere. I call it Acawar because that's what it's Acowar. It's ruin. I just can't think of the W. Whatever. It's fine. Everyone hate me. I'm reading it literally right now. It's a pink cover.
At the end of the day, you're a fan, so who cares if you're mispronouncing something?
No, it's a hardcore community though. Hopefully everyone's supportive.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, we love the book,
Yeah,
and we want other people to read it and love it as well and join the fandom.
Yep, and then we're gonna go through the whole series, and then you'll read Throne of Glass, and that will be wild. And then eventually I'll read Crescent City. We'll get there.
We will.
It's just I don't want it to end. She's just such a genius. But there are so many other great authors, but she's just like incredible.
I'm just always in awe of any author, whether it's about a series I'm interested in or not. Like Lord of the Rings. Enjoyed the movies. I could not do the books. Did you ever try to read any of those books? I couldn't do it. But the fact that here's this guy that created this whole world and these different beings and was able to keep track of it, that's just that blows my mind. Even J.K. Rowling, the way she created that, or Anne Rice, the way she created her Mayfair witches and all the vampires, and there's like genealogy behind it. And then this, I mean, when you open a book and there's a map of a world, the fact that you know, I loved her write, and I haven't written anything in a very, very long time, but it's always been like, it just seems like small cheese in comparison to these types of things, like how your mind can go and just create an entire world, a species. Like, it's something I wish I could do.
It's incredible.
It is. It's, you know, like I bow down. And it was an enjoyable book, and I didn't feel like any of the steamy stuff was over the top or inappropriate. I mean, sometimes I was like, oh wow, she immediately is very turned on by this guy. But I know it does get to that point. But in this book anyway, I didn't feel like it was over the top. It was enjoyable.
This isn't just like smut.
No,
with
it's
plot.
Not.
It's plot with a sprinkle.
With a sprinkle of smells.
Yeah.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
That was an interesting little part.
Oh yeah, she can write. That's for sure.
No, definitely. The problems, and just even in the beginning of like her realizing everything that she had done for her family, and then kind of like if her debt has been paid, or she made that promise to her mom and she fulfilled it, and now it's kind of like at 19, it's such a young baby age. She's like, but now what?
Yep.
What do I live for? What do I do if everyone's taken care of?
Yeah.
And so now she finds a whole set of new problems.
A whole set.
a whole bag of new problems.
But anyway, I'm excited for you to reread the next one.
Yeah, me too, because I loved it. So I ate it up when I was reading it, because it was just like things that I wanted to happen it took a while, but when it finally did happen, I was so freaking happy. You got
Acotar, the little in-betweener book. It's like a little winter Christmas special.
Oh.
And then Nesta, you like Nesta's book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we
covered it.
Talked it out as much as we could before people would just want us to shut up, I think.
I know. I think so.
We don't have a sign off, so I guess for now.
Till next time.
Enjoy your book.